I don't know, I guess documentation of what I was doing. So anyways, there is a so the idea is this. So somebody needs to handle all these transactions, okay? Because we don't have brick and mortar banks to process the credit card transactions. So if somebody uses a Bitcoin to buy a pair of shoes, somebody needs to handle that transaction. You don't have physical currency. So like I have a Bitcoin wallet that has my fraction of a 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 single Bitcoin in it right now. So I just started mining a couple days ago. Now, in any case, when I buy a pair of shoes with my Bitcoin money that's in my Bitcoin wallet that only exists on the internet, that if you lose the pointer to, you lost all your money. Nobody else got it, just it's gone. It's fictitious because the money isn't real. It only has value because people say it has value. But in any case, I'm participating in this slush pool. This it's a Czech Republic is where the place is. That's the CZ thing. And in any case, this pool is me and let's say a million other people all participating together with our CPU power to help process Bitcoin transactions. Okay? So yeah, here's my account right here. So notice in the last 24 hours, I have averaged, well, I've have a confirmed reward of 0.0000278 Bitcoins. So I think if you do the math, that would be basically like 7,000 days until I get one Bitcoin. And one Bitcoin's worth like $500 today. So this is not a major money-making thing. It's more of an interesting computer science thing. Okay? Unless you try to go crazy with it, which is what I tried to do. So notice that this machine right here is currently helping at 34.26 mega hashes per second. So it's all based on cryptography. And hashing, computer science, hashing is a one-way cipher. So you take an arbitrary size input, you encrypt it somehow, and it turns into a fixed size output. So basically my computer's doing math. Now historically, you would use your computer CPU to do math. Well, your computer CPU is slow. Since it's so general purpose, it's actually very slow compared to other tools for just doing math. That's where our graphics card comes in. And that's related back actually to GameSalad. The reason why GameSalad can make things go so quickly is it's based on a technology called OpenCL, which utilizes the multiple cores in your graphics card to make things happen quickly. So to give you an example of that, how many of you have what you consider to be a pretty good gaming computer at home? Okay. So how many of you are running an Intel processor in your gaming computer? Okay, so you're probably running like what, an Intel i7 quad core? Something like that? i5 dual core? So either a dual or a quad core machine. So probably nobody in here has more than a quad core unless you're running a dual quad core. 6 cores do exist, but let's just say quad core processors are considered high end, right? So you get an Intel i7 quad core processor, so it can technically do 4 things at once. Now, this goes back to threading, so think about how threading has worked in GameSalad for us, where you have more than one thing happening at once. Now, how many of you have spent a bunch of money on your graphics card for your gaming rig at home? Because that's the important part, right? So you spend $300, $400, $500, $600 on your graphics card, right? I mean, there's expensive graphics cards. How many of you have like a really expensive graphics card? Like the graphics card costs way more than your processor. So $500, who spent $500 on the graphics card? $600? So we got multiple graphics cards linked. Okay, what do you have? Okay, so that's a $750 graphics card, right? Okay, so you take this graphics card out of the box, and it looks like some sort of spaceship. Okay, it's got these giant heat sinks on it and stuff like that. How many cores does that have? You probably don't even know. You just know how much it costs. Guess. So a high-end processor has 4 cores, right? So take a guess how many cores your graphics card has on it. I will be guessing 2, but I'll give you a much closer guess than you will. Okay? It either has 256 or 512 cores. Because what's a core? A core in a processor is a computing unit in your processor. Well, our Intel processors are generic processors. They need to be able to do a zillion different things. Graphics cards don't. Graphics card need to be able to do math. So you have a little tiny chip on your graphics card that knows how to do floating point math really, really, really fast. It knows how to do nothing else. Okay? And you have, probably yours really has probably 512 cores. It might even have 768. So you have a lot of cores. Well, OpenCL is a computing technology that lays on top of your operating systems and also in many games that takes some of the things that your processor, your CPU used to do, and puts it over to the GPU. And maybe you've seen that word before, GPU. That's your graphics processing unit. That's your processor that has 512 cores in it. Okay? You give that guy a math problem, he's fast at it. Okay, so this guy's he's actually using two different graphics cards. So this laptop has, the gaming graphics card in it, which is this GeForce GT 650, which, this is a very high-end MacBook Pro. So, it's not going to even come close to, this guy is walking backwards compared to his guy that's in a frontward sprint. Okay, but for a laptop, this is pretty solid. Okay, there are better gaming laptops than this, but this is up there. Okay, so between that and my built-in Intel-based graphics, I'm getting 34.3 million hashes per second. His graphics card would probably get about 700 million hashes per second. Huh? Yeah, okay, so you're going to be on the kind of the higher end of this, right? Yeah, 700 million hashes per second is a joke. See, when people started doing Bitcoin mining, started participating in this, they were using their CPUs. Your CPU would probably get like 1 million hashes per second on a high-end CPU. Crap. So now we move over to the GPU. GPU, my iMac at home, which, again, has substantially less horsepower than his graphics card, but has a better graphics card than this, I think did 170 million hashes a second, okay, to his 700, okay? But his, you need to have an air conditioning unit blowing on it, okay? I mean, he has a really nice graphics card. This week, next week, it'll be antiquated. So, in any case, so that's them using GPUs. But now GPUs aren't even the way to go, because when you mine Bitcoins, there's calculators for determining how much money can I make mining a Bitcoin, because keep in mind, you're using this tool like this, and my computer is running hot right now. Because my graphics card is, I'm using a lot of electricity. Concordia is electricity, but electricity nonetheless. Somebody's got to pay that bill. So even though, let's just say in a given, this would take me years, a decade, to mine one Bitcoin. So I would spend a decade to get what by today's value is $500 worth of US currency, let's say. Who knows? A decade from now, Bitcoins might be worthless, or they might be worth millions. Who knows? It's a very volatile market. Bitcoins were $1,200 a piece like 2 months ago or 3 months ago. They were down to $450 yesterday morning. Now they're up to like $520. It's really volatile. So for all we know, next week they're going to be zero. So this
or $1 million.
Bottom line is, the disclaimer here is this is a cool geek hobby. This isn't the get-rich-quick scheme. Okay, so take that away from this. Don't go and do what I'm doing because I'm crazy. So anyways, there's these tools called ASICs. It's a specific microchip that is very, very, very good at doing the specific math that Bitcoin hashing requires. So I ordered one of these off Amazon and shipped it overnight. It was like $22 or something like that. Little USB stick. You put it in the USB. Got this giant heatsink on it. Okay, and it was doing 2.2 gigahashes per second. So for $22, I was doing 2,200 mega hashes a second compared to his $800 graphics card doing 700 mega hashes a second. Okay? Huh? Yeah, a little USB thing. Okay, it's called an ASIC. Well, I decided, because the thing says overclockable. Why do 2.2 when you can do more? Right?
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I just throttled it up. Figure, how bad can it be? Sometime in the middle of the night, it got to 3.04 gigahashes per second. I'm guessing within moments after that is when the fire started. Quite entertaining. Smoke alarms went off, and there was smoke billowing from behind my iMac. And my wife asked what was up, and I just commented to be, I'm like, yeah, Czechoslovakia is attacking. You know, Czechoslovakia doesn't even exist anymore. It's the Czech Republic now, but it sounds funnier when you say it's Czechoslovakia. So in any case, yeah, I burned that one out. It lasted me like 13 hours. Well, I buy it from Amazon. They'll send it back, give me a new one. Burn that one out, right? But in any case, so you have these dedicated things for doing this math. Now, at that rate, I was doing, you know, let's say safely 2 gigahashes a second. I think if I kept it at 2, it would probably function.
Yeah.
3 broke. It broke it, is what I did. And my machine's fine, though. I got some scorch marks in the back. Most of the fire was coming off the end of the heatsink, farther away from the computer. The silicon actually melted. It was funny. So in any case, as an individual, what can you do? So some people build, just like you, some of you guys in here build gaming rigs. Some people build Bitcoin mining rigs. Okay, so the places they sell like big USB hubs that have enough spacing between them, so you can just keep lining up these things and just be running, you know, hundreds of gigahashes per second. So you have people spend, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 putting together a machine to hash this stuff, hoping to mine Bitcoins that might be worth millions or might be worth nothing. It's like a video game. It's like a real-life video game where you possibly burn your house down.
Do they have to keep it in a freezer?
Well, in retrospect, it seems like that may have been a good idea for me. But I'm glad I learned about it now, because tomorrow I have 5 more of those things coming. And I just bought this robot off of eBay. It looks like a cinder block, and it's supposed to do 500 gigahashes per second.
Oh boy.
But it has its own built-in fan and liquid cooling and stuff. I won it. Very good price I won this thing for. Way under market. But
there you go.
Yeah, my wife isn't happy about that because it was way more expensive than you think. But I'm
way under market.
But I'm way under market. But I'm a crazy person. Remember that.
Yeah.
Now, but what's interesting about this, there's a whole technology market surrounding this stuff. So what I also did is I'm investigating. I'm going to end up writing a research paper on this. So, you know, if I end up, what's going to be cool is if I can say one day that I actually mined 1 Bitcoin. My gut feeling is Bitcoins are going to become worthless. It's just too hacker-based, in my opinion. People think that having money regulated is evil, which it is. But I think it's also a necessary evil to have money be worth something. That's my opinion. But I'm still mining them, so whatever. So I'll be able to say at some point that I have 1 Bitcoin of digital currency that's worthless, but hey, I have one. And one day it'll be super rare. So I'll be able to sell my Bitcoin for a lot of money, not because it's legal tender, but because it's like people who buy an old Mac or an Apple One computer today that doesn't even turn on, but it's got market value or something, you know. But whatever. But there's these cloud computing places now. So instead of you having to buy all this hardware, what you do is you pay them a yearly fee. So like I set up one of them just to kind of try it out. It was $100 for 1 year, and it gives me 8 gigahashes per second. You know, and based on the current market value, that $100 should turn into $130-ish at the end of the year. So you make $30, but that's a 30% return on your investment. So if only you spend $50,000, then the price of it goes down to 0 and you lose all your money. But in any case, it's really interesting. I'm experimenting between running your own hardware and using somebody else's hardware where they're responsible for it. But every year you have to re-up. So you're basically paying for hardware every year, but you don't have to maintain it. I don't know. I just find it just seems fascinating to me. This idea of this thing sitting here, and I'm, you know, if we go into the website here, yeah, this is the average. I had it running on my computer, just graphics card for most of yesterday. Then I got that ASIC thing. So the ASIC was at 3,000 mega hashes. So you can at least see that I was running it much higher. But yeah, so look at that Bitcoin I got. And that's major money right there. So let's see, how long would that be? 35,868 days. I will have 1 Bitcoin. So in 100 years. Huh? No, that's just to get a complete Bitcoin. I mean, I have a fraction of a Bitcoin because I'm already a Bitcoin owner. So I could spend 100 years doing this. Now, you also got to keep in mind that over 100 years of doing at the speed I'm doing, how much am I going to spend in electricity?
Quite a bit more.
way more than the $500 that Bitcoin is worth. So, yeah, this is not a good idea from a money-making perspective unless somebody else is paying for electricity. So what you really need is very low-power devices that do lots of gigahashes or terahashes or petahashes. So, like one of the pool places that I bought my 8 gigahashes from, they do 1.2 petahashes per second. So that is 1 gigahash. Well, 1 terahash is 1,000 gigahashes. 1 petahash is 1,000 terahashes. So 1.2 terahashes or 1.2 petahashes is 1.2 million gigahashes. Fast. So they're making something like, after electricity, when you do the math for it, something like $1.3 million per year in profit. But they have a lot of risk because you're also paying a $700,000. They're making about $2 million a year in total revenue. But their risk is about $700,000 in electricity per year. So if the value of Bitcoins goes down, then they're risking $700,000 a year in power. That's a guaranteed outlay. The Bitcoin thing is all based on this market. So I don't know, it's just kind of fascinating computer science, geeky type stuff. That so a couple of you rose your hands and said you've done some Bitcoin mining stuff before. What was your experience like? Huh? You couldn't get the wallet hooked up? Oh, hold on. You were using the one with the orange icon, the main one? It takes about a week for it to finish syncing the chain. That's why. There's some other ones that use a subset of the chain. But you wouldn't, I mean, most of the things, like I have my threshold set at 1. So this guy's not going to pay my wallet. Here's my wallet key if anybody wants to send me Bitcoins. It's longer than this. So there's my unique key for my wallet. But it's not going to send me one for 100 years at my current rate. That's smart. That's right. No, it's so good. So who else was doing this? All right, so what was your experience?
So then, like, I ended up just like going to buying some, where you just have to you go through like a bunch of steps, like go through, like, fill out these forms, and then send it to someone for like send to your wallet. And
So you went through a bank with physical dollars to buy fictitious coins and had it sent to your digital wallet.
some random dude, yeah.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. Hey, I'm going through Czechoslovakia, so at least you stayed in the United States, the Czech Republic.
It was like $30, $40 per coin. This was a long time.
Yeah, how many coins do you have?
I had less, but at that time.
How many did you have?
Like it was, like I think I paid it up, and like I really hit the back down.
That's $4,000.
Yeah, like last month or something before it crashed.
Yeah, but they were $1,200 a piece.
I could have been so much better.
Yeah, but then what would you do? It's just like any other investment. Like, oh, well, it's going to keep going up, so I'm not going to spend these because they're worth too much. Then they go down to 5 cents. And
I would take like my $8,000 and spend like $100 on things.
yeah, but would you? Would you have taken your $8,000 and ran, or would you say, well, maybe this 8,000 becomes 20,000? Human greed always kicks in. Go ahead.
I heard of this guy buying a Lamborghini.
Yep.
Really didn't accept it.
Tons of places now. It's actually quite popular in Europe. It's the United States that really hasn't bought into the Bitcoins too. I mean, it's not as popular as the mainstream currencies anywhere. But in Europe, it's significantly more accepted, this idea of Bitcoins, than it is in the United States. So I just find it fascinating. Now, from a Christian worldview perspective, so let's spin that in this class. And I find this, because I'm big into Christian apologetics, and I like reading a lot of the different Christian fiction novels. And I'm Lutheran, and Lutherans don't believe in the rapture, but I kind of think it makes a good movie. So I tend to believe in the rapture because I think it sounds cooler than not having the rapture. The rapture, what's supposed to happen? Jesus comes back, takes all his people up to heaven, and we get to watch 7 years of hell on earth or something like that. So I like that storyline. That makes the best movie. So if you haven't read them, the Left Behind series is a very good book series. It's like 13 books, and it's, the storyline is basically what happens if the rapture occurred today. If you're, like one of the main characters is a 747 pilot, and randomly half his plane is gone because they were raptured, and then, hell breaks out, and then you have the rise of the Antichrist and all this stuff. Made for a great movie. But in any case, one of the kind of the common themes in those rapture type stories deals with there being a one world currency. So if we assume for a second that the Lutherans are a little off, and this rapture thing's legit. Yeah, it's one of those things. Some Christian denominations believe in a post-trib rapture. Some believe in a pre-trib rapture. Some believe in a mid-trib rapture. And then other ones, I think the Lutherans just believe it just ends. So, yeah. I mean, whatever. We're going to be surprised any way you cut it. It's just going to happen, right? But in any case, so what if the Bitcoins are that one world currency? Dun, dun, dun. So basically, I'm mining devil's gold. I don't know, it's fine. Very fascinating to me, this kind of stuff. My wife thinks I'm crazy. And it was funny, I was on a phone call this morning. A lot of you who know me, I do a lot of business stuff outside of Concordia. Teaching is just kind of what I do for fun. But I won this entrepreneurial award thing here in Milwaukee. I think it's called the Bravo Award or something. And they were interviewing me for it this morning. And the lady was asking me why I get into all these different interesting things. I just think it's fun. So we do it. If it costs you money, it costs you money. You learn something from it. If not, whatever. But she asked me, well, what does your wife think about this? She says, oh, she hates all of it. So my wife will be married for, it's either 14 or 15 years in May. I never wear my wedding ring. It's on my keychain because I golf a lot. So I take it off when I golf. So now it just stays on my keychain. Always have it with me. But in any case, so if you didn't know I was married, I am. But in any case, I said, oh yeah, my wife hates this stuff because she's very conservative. Between the two of us, we become like a normal person. So I kind of tell people that's like the secret to marriage, is I'm not a functional human being on my own. With her, we become normal because she's freaky on her own side of things. She's ultra conservative, like to that side. I'm like ultra aggressive, I guess. Well, so she said, what does your wife think about this? I said, oh, no, she hates it. She's super conservative. She hates whenever I do this stuff. But then again, I'm also a guy, so I don't listen. So I said, most of the time my wife is right. And that's been my experience. So guys, remember that. Okay? And it's not even a lie. Literally, I would say a minimum of 95% of the time, when my wife says something is a bad idea, it turns out to be a bad idea. And less than 5% of the time do I listen. Because I'm a guy. And guys don't listen, right? No, it's a thing. Look, this is, again, Christian worldview. God wired us a little. I think it was for humor. God decided, hey, women become the serious ones. Like, okay, we need somebody down there to maintain order. And then guys were like, okay, I need some sort of comic relief. We're like God's stress ball. So it's kind of. Have you ever heard that before? That's an interesting.
That's a new one.
That's a new one. We're God's stress ball. Yeah. But yeah, the lady was laughing on the phone when I said that. I said, yeah, my wife's pretty. She doesn't like any of the stuff I do, and she's almost always right. But I'm a guy, so I don't listen. I think that's entertaining. So that's why I'm mining things out of the Czech Republic.
For possible.
No, I'm under no. Yeah, I believe entirely that I will not make a dime off this.
So you just enjoy running up Concordia's electricity bill?
Well, no, I'm not doing it at Concordia. Well, I guess technically I'm doing it at Concordia right now. I am doing it at Concordia this moment. So here, we'll stop that. So we maintain the ethical integrity of the classroom. And besides, it's going to take me 100 years to get anything out of this. So that would be maybe one thing if I was running a major mining operation out of my office or something like that, pulling a terahash or something, or a petahash or something, then I can donate it back to the university, everybody comes out ahead, blah, 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 but no, this is a poor use of electrical funds. So I don't know,
Well, if you get that robot and it does what it says it does, you keep it close.
Well, but even that, that's...
It's still 100 years.
No, not 100 years. It would be like, I think I would get one Bitcoin like maybe every 5 years or something like that. This is not something you're going to make a lot of money off of unless you dump a lot of money into it day one. And by dumping a lot of money into it day one, you're taking a lot of risk because you don't know if Bitcoins are going to go down to zero next week.
Right.
So obviously, all of you should, when you think about retirement, think about investing in Bitcoins. You could be set by the time you're 30.
Or you could be screwed by the
time
you're 60.
Oh, no, easily. Easily. Yeah, you should take his route and just, as soon as it looks good, bail. Except he probably bought a pair of sneakers for 4 Bitcoins or something like that. Oh, this is a good deal. These only cost me $30. And you could have bought a car. Did you ever think about that? You bought sneakers, but you could have bought a car. How does that make you feel? Yeah, that's stupid. What were you thinking, dude? Yeah, but remember, it's the devil's currency. You heard it here first. So mine it, or don't mine it. I'm not sure what you should do. As a Christian, should you be mining it? What's going to be there anyways? You might as well know enough about the enemy. I'm going to stick with that one. Okay.
Let's just go with it.
Let's just run with that. What's this?
Christians in a .com world.
Yeah.
No,
but isn't this stuff kind of fascinating?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't know. And this all came from one of your fellow students who skipped class today. And he was texting me last night because I texted him and told him my computer was on fire.
Did his computer light on fire?
No, he's doing it with normal means, not, hey, crazy, let's overnight ship something from Amazon to put this on steroids. I have problems. So, now if I would have put it down in my basement, it probably would have kept things cooler with all the flooding.
Yeah, but then your iMac might not have survived quite as well.
Well, that only makes the story better. If I wake up, it's one thing if your $22 USB thing is smoking, but if your entire iMac is melted down,
you'd have boiling water in your basement.
And I know it got up to 3.04. Well, actually, I took a picture. I took a picture of the stopped screen.
Yeah, it did get there.
So that's what I found this morning on my screen, 3.04 gigahashes. But usually when it's going, it kind of moves around.
Yeah.
Now this was stuck there. That was the speed it was going when the device died. How did the accident happen?
When it was ceremoniously put.
That's right. Exactly.
Or torch.
Okay. Now that we've talked about some of that unrelated computer science stuff, we need to talk about other computer science stuff. We are trying to get instances of our observer actor. So quickly here. We went into observer and we set 2 variables, a cur room and a previous room. Right? And what does this guy do? He prints out his cur room and previous room, but when he first comes in, he changes those by 1. So cur room goes up by 1, so that should become 0. Previous room goes up by 1, so it should become -1. Okay, so every single instance of our observer is going to do this when it comes into existence. Okay? And actually, just to take this a step further, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw a timer in here just to remind us how timers work with this. But the timer does not fire until that scene becomes real, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to say after, let's say 3 seconds, we're going to do this stuff. So in any case, this should print out -1, -2. Then 3 seconds later, it should print out 0, -1 for our initial scene. Do it. Hold on. Am I on the initial scene?
Use the force.
Actually, it shouldn't matter because they're both instances. Oh, it's because we changed this guy. I need to revert back to
Button.
revert to prototype. There. Now this guy should be back to where he should be. So we'll go ahead and run this. After 3 seconds, he goes to 0, -1. Now, when we click on this guy, it should take us to the other screen, although the other guy is still the instance as well. So let me switch over to scene 1. Is this our observer?
Aye.
No, I don't think that's our observer. That's our exit. Is this the observer?
That's the treasure.
That's the treasure.
And it says observer on the top.
I'll do it.
Top right, very left.
Over here?
Yeah.
Right here. Right here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting, though, is that says revert to prototype, yet there's nothing in there. So we're just going to assume that's a bug, and I'll just drag a new observer out there. Now this guy should look more legit. Crap inside. Okay, good. Okay, so now we'll hit play. We're on the main screen. After 3 seconds, this guy should go 0, -1. Now when I go to the next screen, he should start off at -1, -2. And then 3 seconds later, it'll kick. So that's, again, our proof that the timer does not start until we switch to the scene. Correct? Now, we want these two observers to somehow communicate with each other. So they need to be able to send messages. I think last class we talked about these guys as if they're kind of referees. Right? So they both know the rules of the game, but they are physically different referees. These are instances of observer as opposed to a single observer that looks over everything. Okay? So this kind of becomes, if we take this back to computer science, let me quickly open up our slide set. We have something called contexts, which we've talked about in here a little bit, but now we're going to give some specific. I promise I'm typing. I still promise I'm typing.
The graphics card over here.
No, I think I had this problem one other time. I think I need to kill Keynote. Yeah, my graphics card melted my keyboard. Do not do this. Any piece of equipment you try to mine on will be destroyed. 15 minutes tops.
That's just a bit.
I've had problems with, I think it's a Keynote bug. Okay, so we have context. We have an instance context, and we have a static context in traditional programming. Instance context says that each instance, I'm going to put this in game salad lingo, each instance of an actor has its own, let's say, thoughts. Okay? So we can have two separate observers, and each of those observers, while they do the same thing, they're working independently of each other. Make sense? Now, a static context, there is only one actor. So we would not have instances of the actor. Okay, so there's kind of this global guy that oversees the entire game, if you will. Now, Game Salad does not let us create behaviors within the static context. But now Game Salad does have a static context. How have we experienced the static context in Game Salad? Through game level attributes. If we create an attribute at the game level, so we can create variables that govern the entire game, right? We create attributes at the game level, any scene can see those, correct? That's an example of a static context. It doesn't matter what scene we're in, it doesn't matter which actor we are, what instance of an actor we are, we can see the game's attributes, and if one actor changes that game's attribute, every other actor experiences that change, correct? That's been our way of communicating between actors currently, as well as between scenes. Now, now we can do between scenes and between actors in different scenes because they're all looking at the exact same variable that only exists once. Whereas in an instance context, like we're dealing with here, we have one instance. Let me go back here. Here's one instance of our observer. Here's a second instance of our observer. This guy has his own copy of cur room and previous room. This guy has his own copy of cur room and previous room. So they're both attributes, but these guys are in an instance context. So if this particular instance of our observer actor changes cur room, it does not affect the cur room of the other guy. These guys are not connected. That make sense? Okay. So one limitation, one matrix limitation we have with Game Salad is that the only way we can communicate within a static context is through attributes at the game level. We don't have the ability at the game level to add behaviors. Does that make sense? Similarly, we don't have the ability at a scenes level to add behaviors. Make sense? That's a limiting factor of Game Salad. So the only way we can govern an individual scene, if you will, is by having an instance actor in that scene. We can have those actors be augmented by a static context, which is our global attributes. Okay? Now, when we are in this first scene, and I take this exit, I want this next scene to know where I just came from, so I can go back. That make sense? As of right now, we had it hard-coded into our exits to make this work. So we need to remember where we came from. We can put at the global level, at our game's global level, we can put in here an attribute that keeps track of cur room and previous room. We can even put them by name. But when we click on an exit, the only way that an exit moves between rooms, I think we have these guys done as instances, right, is we use change scene. And change scene allows us to go to an individual scene by name. Does that make sense? It doesn't allow us to say, go to the scene with name that is stored in the game's global variable previous scene. Okay? So, last time, we were talking about how do we solve this problem. And somebody mentioned we could have a giant block of if statements. Absolutely true, correct? So maybe what you do is you write inside of your observer a big block of if statements that says, if previous room is this, then move to this room. If previous room is this, move to this room. Actually, you probably do it inside of your exit instead of your observer. Okay? Now, the question is there an alternate way of doing it? Again, this is playing within the matrix. Is there any way, given what we know now, for us to move between scenes? Let me ask it a little different way. Is there any way that we know now that we could simulate moving between scenes? When we first started talking about this, was I mentioning this in terms of like a cave crawler thing? Did I mention that in here?
Dungeon
Okay.
crawler, yeah.
Okay, dungeon crawler thing. Okay, good. So let's think about Mario. If you're playing Super Mario Brothers and you're running across the screen, every single time you enter a new screen, are you entering a new scene? Or are you just extending where you are in the viewport? Earlier in the semester, we looked at the camera, right? When we run this, we're seeing the current scene through the current camera view. If we were to move that camera view so it's centered over here, what would we see? Whatever's over here. Could we actually create our cave in a single scene where we have exits over, up, down? If we click here, what does it do? It moves the camera one room over, one screen over. So maybe we know this guy is 800 pixels wide, let's just say. So what we might do is we might change the origin of the camera 800 pixels, and it's going to show us the next room over here. If we hit the up arrow, what's it going to do? It's going to move us up. This is a gigantic space that we can have our, that we can experience our cave. So if I go back here, and I'm at the scene level here, I can change the size of the scene. And let's say the scene now has a width of 50,000. Okay? Well, I'm in the wrong scene. There we go. Width of 50,000. I can come over here and I can just keep going, drawing new actors. So here, I'll just throw an observer right here. We'll throw a treasure right here. That way we'll see it changing color. Another observer. Some treasure. So we see that all this stuff exists in our game, correct? And we can scroll through it and we can see all this stuff. It's off screen. So all we see on the screen is what the camera is currently looking at. This also comes back to how GPUs perform. So he has his $800 graphics card. That $800 graphics card can show a whole lot of pixels on the screen at an individual point in time. But the only thing it's showing on the screen right now is what we currently see. When you move to the next screen, well, now it's got to display that stuff. So, do you play Battlefield? Okay, what's your main game that you bought this graphics card for? Just bragging rights. Well, I play a lot of online chess. So it's a yacht. Okay. So let's just use Battlefield as an example. Okay. Oh well, here let's just use Battlefield as it's a good example. Okay. So if you're playing Battlefield, one thing that you might measure your gaming rig's performance is by frames per second. Okay. So let's say that his computer is capable of 1,000 frames a second. Just throw that out there, right? So his computer is capable of 1,000 frames a second. Now, all of us in here, when we play a video game, we're using our eyeballs, right? How many frames a second can your eyeball see? It's maximum of 60. Most people, it's about 40 or 42 frames per second is what our eyeball can perceive. So did he just waste $800 to show 1,000 frames a second that we can't even experience? No, if you use Bitcoin money, exactly. Okay, I know we're out of time here, but the punchline here is when he's getting at least 45 frames a second, and you're getting at least 45 frames a second, we're both experiencing the same thing. Right. It's when he goes to a scene where a zillion explosions and stuff are happening, when your machine drops down to 1 frame a second, and his machine drops down to 600 frames a second. Okay? He's still experiencing in real time where you can't, your game's unplayable. So he's overkilling it so that his worst case scenario is way better than the human eye can see. Your worst case scenario is a static image. All right. So we'll come back on Friday. We're good.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Oh, break. Oh, we don't have class on Monday either. Oh my gosh. Okay, well I'll probably get malaria in that period of time. All right, everybody have a safe break. If you're traveling somewhere, don't do anything stupid, but start hacking Bitcoins, definitely. And if you want, I can give you my Bitcoin wallet so you can send everything my way.
Extra credit, guys. $3,500 for 1 terahash. How about that?
It's actually not bad.
Really?
Yeah.
How much did you spend on this thing?
Hold on a second. Let me stop the recording.